Angular is a single-page application framework, because of which most of its basic concepts are different from a traditional web application. In a traditional web application, when we move from one page to another page, we are making a complete trip to the server. In a single-page application, instead, we just have one page. And when we want to move from one view to another view, we are actually hiding the view in front of us and replacing it with a new view. This showing and hiding of a view is controlled through Angular routing. In this lesson, we will understand how to incorporate Angular routing, and we will also create the components that are required for our application. Right now, these components will be empty, but we will just create them and bind them with the route. When we were creating this application using ng-new command, the Angular CLI asked us a question that do we want to set up Angular routing, and we said yes to that. As a result of that, in our code, we have an app routing module, which is also injected into our app module. Let's understand what is app routing module. App routing module is basically registering all the routes that are required in our application. And how it is doing that is by using a routes array. In order to tell our application what component should be loaded when a user goes to what route, we have to populate this routes array. Let's see an example of that. Since we are making a bank application and our bank is going to have accounts, and we need a page where we are going to manage those accounts. So we are going to have a route that's called manage accounts, and we will have a component that will be shown as a result of that route being visited. So let's populate this array. The routes object takes two things. The first one is the path. For example, here we are saying that if someone tries to visit manage/accounts, we want them to present it with a component that's called manage accounts component. But we don't have this component at the moment, and we will create this component. Along with that, we are going to create other components as well, which will be required in that application. We are going to have a component which will be called a dashboard component, and that is going to hold the dashboard of the application. And then we are going to have a component that will be used to transfer funds from one account to another account. After that, we are going to have a component that will be used to actually create a new account. Then we will have a component to manage accounts. Actually, this is the one which we just typed, but we haven't created yet. So these are the 5 different components we will have in our application. So let's build them one by one. To build them, we are going to use Angular CLI. The Angular CLI commands that create a new component is called ng-generate. So we are going to type ng-generate and we'll say component, and the name of the component will be manage accounts. So it has created a component, and let's see what got changed. You can see that it has created a file that is going to hold the CSS and the styles of this component. Then it is going to hold a file which is going to have the HTML of the component. Then it has generated some default tests, and then it is generated a TypeScript file which is going to hold the backend of that particular component. And it has generated it inside the app folder, and it created actually a folder called manage accounts. And also in our routing module, as you can see that now we can actually fix this error by importing manage components that was recently created. And this manage component got automatically added in our declarations array of app module. With that, we are ready to use this component. And before actually using this component, let's create other components which we just discussed. we are going to have a component called dashboard. We are also going to have a component called transfer funds. And then there will be a component called add account. And finally, there will be a component that will be used to actually deposit funds. Now that we have all the components, let's use them in our routes. So there will be a path called deposit funds. And then this path will show the user deposit funds component. Same way there is going to be a path called add account. It's going to show them the add account component. Same way there will be a component for transfer funds. That is going to take them to the transfer funds component. And then lastly, it's going to have a route for the dashboard. For that, we are just going to use an empty route or a slash, which means that if we want to go to the home of the application, we should be going to the dashboard component. Before seeing everything in action, let's see how an Angular single page application is constructed. In index.html, we have something called app root in the body section, and this is where the app component is going to be injected. And if we look at the app component, it has a bunch of stuff which comes by default when we create the application using ng new. So we will just simply remove this thing. It has also a couple of the things which we did in the previous lesson, but that was just testing, and we were just testing that our third-party libraries are working or not. Since we already know that they're working, we can remove everything that is here and replace it with something like, hi, this is an app component. So now if we run the application, a slight correction here. To set up a default path, we cannot actually start a path with a slash. Instead, we have to keep it empty to tell what should be the default path. So now let's see the output of it. As you can see, the moment we press Ctrl S, it recompiles and loads the page, and you can see that it is showing us this is an app component, and this is actually coming from the app component. And the reason this is coming here, because whatever is in app component is actually getting injected in the app root. So if we want to inject our components that were recently created, we have to use something called the router outlet. So we will replace this with something called router outlet from Angular. And what it does is that it checks what is being asked us for. For example, if we are asking Angular router to load manage accounts component, that manage account components, the HTML of manage account component will be replaced at this location. So let's see if it works. So now that we have saved it, and now if we try to go to this /manage accounts, it is going to show us the manage accounts component. And if we will try to go to, let's say, add account, it is going to show us the add account component. So with this, we understand that now the routing is working in our application, and we can go ahead and do some real magic with these components.